My guest tonight is John Downes, who's going to talk to us about the weird weekend that's going on in Heartland this weekend. I think it's this weekend, isn't it?
Well, Heartland's a fairly weird place.
Yes, he'll be talking to us after the hour. I'm joined in the studio by Jess, Richard and John, who'll be talking to us shortly about all things weird and the cryptozoology, which I put on the Facebook page earlier on. We'll find out what that is as well. I've also got some great music lined up, including a new track from Stargrace, which has been hot off the press. I've been handed it about 5 minutes ago, just loaded it onto the computer, and we'll play that a bit later on as well. We've also got a track from a local band, Organic Reflection, where Martin Eve will play his track again. Because people have been asking, did he really go down to the tip and hit pipes and record the music? Yes, he did. And then he turned it into a track we played a few weeks ago, and people keep asking for it, so we'll play that as well. And after this, we will talk to John, Richard, and maybe Jess, but she's looking a bit nervous, so I don't think she will be talking, but she's here to support them. So I'm joined in the studio by John Downes and Richard Freeman, who have come to tell us about the weird weekend in Heartland. So, John, first of all, let's start off with cryptozoology. Can you explain what cryptozoology is?
It's simple. It's the study of unknown animals. It's the search for animals that are hidden from conventional science.
Right. So, I mean, the obvious ones are, I assume, the abominable snowman, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call him. Are we looking at sort of those sorts of things, or are we looking at more like common animals, sort of different types of species we would know?
There are all sorts of things, because I mean the ones, like you say, that people have heard of most, the Loch Ness Monster, the totally ineptly named abominable snowman, because it doesn't live in the snow, it's not abominable, it's not a man, and Bigfoot. But there are all sorts of other things which are far less well known, and I've been a professional cryptozoologist now for about 25 years, and Richard's been 20 years now, isn't it, Richard? Something like that.
Yeah.
And we've known each other 20 years now, so...
Right, okay. So how do you go about, I mean, obviously, is it just like any scientific sort of expedition that when you go looking for them, or is there a team of people around the world looking for them? How does it work?
Well, we're the biggest organisation in the world dealing with this stuff, and I've spent much of the last quarter century trying to get this to be taken seriously as a proper scientific discipline, rather than having it in the realm of sort of hocus pocus and mumbo jumbo and getting mixed up with sort of pseudoscience, when it isn't. It's a perfectly valid, proper science in its own right.
Right, and you've been on several expeditions, I understand.
I've been on quite a few, but Richard's been on a heck of a lot more. We've done something like 30 expeditions between us. Right,
and you've also written a number of books and made a number of films, I think.
Yes, both of us have. When people ask me how many books I've written, it's really embarrassing to say I can't remember. I've done something like 20. Richard's done something like 10 at the moment.
Right, and you've also got a centre for cryptozoology here in Devon, haven't you? Which is why the Weird Weekend is held here every year.
Well, the Weird Weekend started off as something that me and Richard and our colleagues wanted to do just for fun, because we'd been invited. It was a bit like when you're a kid and you get invited to everybody else's birthday party, and we'd all been invited to go and talk at everybody else's conferences, and it was time we threw our own birthday party and invited everybody back. And so we did it just for fun, and I never had any idea that 16 years later we'd still be doing it. And the reason it's in North Devon is because I live in North Devon, and I think it's a gorgeous part of the world. And I'm damned if I'm going to go and hold it in some dingy inner city somewhere. Well, I can make people to come from all over Europe anyway, and sometimes from America and Australia, to come here and see what a lovely place we live in.
Right, and the Centre for Cryptozoology?
Centre for Fortean Zoology.
Yeah, zoology. That's your sort of centre here.
Yeah, again, it started off as a conceptual place. It's a bit like that song goes, wherever I lay my hat, there's my home. Wherever I happen to live, and wherever my library and my collection of specimens my computers are, that's where the Centre for Fortean Zoology is.
Right, okay.
But I suppose, truthfully, these days it probably be said it exists online more, because we've got people all over the world.
Yeah, I saw I had a look at the site earlier on, and it's quite interesting to see the various different. I mean, it's not just zoology, is it? I mean, it's UFO, it's all sorts of things that are involved.
Well, yes and no. In the Weird Weekend, yes. The Weird Weekend is an entertaining thing for people who are interested in cryptozoology, and there's other stuff that we think they might be interested in. But the Centre for Fortean Zoology itself just deals with cryptozoology.
Right, okay. Right, well, we'll talk to Richard after we've played a track. I've got the track I mentioned earlier on, which is Organic Reflection by Fourth Eden. Martin Eve, who recorded it, went down to the tip and started hitting pipes, recorded the sounds, and then, of course, turned it into this.
turn around and force the world to watch the things you're going through. Oh, Mr. Surf, believe everything they tell you and be damned if they'll thank you. You paint everything so cruel, coming on like Mr. Cool. Paint your face and shut the gate, no one's coming home till late. Ooh-la, cha. Don't you know, life gets tedious enough without this extra crutch to bear. You so slow, shift your ideas, make your mind up in a jiffy, let's be there. We'll all be taken off tonight. Turn off your eyes and shut the lights. Oh, you're the most, you're so unreal. We'd all be dead without your spiel. Ooh-la, take it. Down and bring the dawn in the morning on your way. Mr. Surf, put your feet upon the waters and play Jesus for a day. And you begin to hear them mumble, spot the starman rough and tumble. Fight the good fight, sling your axe, watch the speaker lead the packs. Go again.
Mr. Soft, Steve Harley and Cockney Rebel. I played that because apparently John used to be the he used to work for Mr. Harley, and he was the fan club manager and all sorts of things, sell the t-shirts and you name it. Right, Richard's turn. Richard Freeman.
Hello.
So what do you call yourself then? I know what it says on the piece of paper that you're talking about at the weekend, but you are a cryptozoologist.
I am indeed a cryptozoologist, and I travel the world doing scientific expeditions in search of animals like the Tasmanian wolf, the Mongolian deathworm, the yeti, the giant anaconda, and many, many others.
Now, the giant anaconda, I've heard about that. That is supposed to be a huge snake, isn't it? I mean,
well, this is not a species that's unknown to science, but it's freakish individuals of a known species growing to an immense size. The biggest anaconda ever measured was about 27 feet. But there are persistent, unproven, but persistent reports of anacondas 45, 50, and even 60 feet long in the jungles of South America, where in some areas they call them the manatoro, which means bull killer, because they're supposed to be able to constrict fully grown bulls and swallow them whole.
Wow. Yeah, that doesn't bear thinking about, does it? Now, you're saying you've done several expeditions, and when we were listening to Steve Harley, you mentioned Sumatra.
Yes, I've been back to Sumatra, which is a large island in Indonesia. I've been there 5 times now, searching for a creature called the orang pendek, and in Malay that means the short man. And this is supposed to be a upright walking, powerfully built ape, about 3.5 to 4 feet tall, but very, very muscular and broad-shouldered with dark hair. And unlike the orangutan, it lives on the forest floor. Now, I've heard this creature calling, and its vocalisation is unlike any other primate. I've seen its handprints and its footprints, and I've worked with all the known species of ape, and they're completely different. And moreover, some hair we got on one of our expeditions was analysed by Lars Thomas of Copenhagen University, and he said he was forced to conclude that it's from an unknown primate. It's related to the Sumatran orangutan, but distinct from it.
Right, so what you're saying is there's a species that's living there that is not completely extinct. Is it the fact that there would have been more of them in the past, and gradually the habitat and everything else has constricted on them and they've disappeared, or is there a lot of them? I mean, how do you gauge these sorts of things?
Well, we don't know what sort of a population there is. The last time I was there, we went there when there was a lot of fruit ripening, and we found lots and lots of footprints and handprints of different individuals, so there seemed to be a decent population. The place we go to, Kerinci Sablat National Park, is roughly the size of Wales, and it's thick, deep rainforest. Now, on every side it's beset by palm oil plantations and coffee plantations and deforestation, but there's still an immense amount of jungle there, and it's pretty poorly explored.
And it would be because I suppose that even if you cut a route through it, it would pretty quick grow over again because it's tropical and because of the rate of growth in those sorts of areas.
Well, they did send the Trans-Sumatran Highway through the area at one point, and there were reports when they were doing this back in the 70s of the orang pendek being seen by the workmen.
Right, okay. So again, it's a bit like the Exmoor beast, where until somebody actually gets a photo of it or whatever else, nobody's going to know whether A, it exists, or B, what it is.
Well, we're pretty sure it exists, and we're pretty sure we know what it is, but we need more evidence. We need DNA evidence.
So is there any sort of could you not set up cameras, or is it?
Yes, we do. We do set up cameras, but we tested the camera traps here in Britain before we went, and we found that they're set up for 2 or 3 weeks. You find very little. You see very little. If they're left for several months, you see all sorts of things over here: badgers, foxes, deers, otters, ladies having peas in the wood, which is one thing we got on our camera trap. And so we go over for 2 or 3 weeks because it's all we can afford at the minute.
Right.
So when we put our camera traps up, we very rarely get anything. If you got something, you'd be phenomenally lucky. You have to leave stuff up for a very long time. Now, there's an animal we all know called the snow leopard. Everyone's heard of the snow leopard. When moving pictures of the snow leopard were first taken, it took BBC cameramen something like 6 or 7 years in the field to actually find and film snow leopards in the wild. So if you're talking about a rare, elusive animal in a very rugged and remote terrain, it's going to take a hell of a long time. I'd like to be able to go out to these places for months and months on end, but it's all down to the folding green stuff.
Yeah, which it always is, of course. So how are the expeditions funded? Is it your own funding privately?
It's our own funding. We fund them ourselves, and I write books about the expeditions, and we make films and put them up on YouTube. I'm hoping to go back to Tasmania on the trail of a flesh-eating marsupial called the Tasmanian wolf or thylacine next year. I was over there a couple of years ago, and I talked to some very, very intriguing witnesses, one of whom was a government licensed shooter who goes out into the bush keeping the numbers of wallabies down, and he'd seen this animal twice, and that's a creature we thought died out in the 1930s.
Right, okay, so that's something that we know about that we thought was extinct. So the Weird Weekend, which is a Friday, Saturday and Sunday this week, am I right? It's at Heartland. It's the old school?
Yes, the old school.
Small school, yes. Small school, sorry. And we'll tell you a bit more about how you can get in touch a bit later on. And I understand you're talking at the event and you're talking about dragons.
Dragons, yes. Now, dragons could be described as the great-great-granddaddy of all monsters. Forget about demons and vampires and werewolves and zombies. They're all Johnny-come-latelys. The dragon is the original uber monster found in every culture in every country on Earth. And bizarrely, there are still reports of dragon-like creatures, particularly from Asia, right up into the 21st century. And I'll be looking at what might be behind these sightings, what might be behind ancient dragon lore, and taking a look at things as diverse as Megalania, which was a giant venomous prehistoric lizard the size of a bus, monstrous killer crocodiles and snakes, and possibly unknown descendants of prehistoric reptiles.
Right, because there are sort of lizard stroke kind of almost dragons, aren't there, that still exist in the world?
Well, there's the Komodo dragon, which is a poisonous lizard the length of a car that lives on a handful of Indonesian islands and feeds on animals as large as water buffalo, wild boar, and the occasional German banker. But there are stories coming out of New Guinea of monstrous lizards 30 feet long, in terms of length the size of a saltwater crocodile, and these may or may not be related to the prehistoric species Megalania prisca that I mentioned earlier on.
Right, okay. So we've still got this sort of fall down in evolution from those dinosaurs here on the Earth now. So yeah, it's a very interesting subject. All right, we're going to play a track I promised you earlier on. As I said, it was handed to me by Jess, who brought it in hot off the press. It's Stargate. It's a track called Look Back to Look Forward, and see what you think of this.
Event Guide on The Voice.
Well, the event guide, I suppose the best way to sort of do this is to talk about the Weird Weekend. So if I just do this, then Richard is going to tell us about one of the items that's actually happening at the Weird Weekend, which is, am I getting this right, a tunnel of goats?
Can we have a nurse to the Tunnel of Goats, please, as a child has become lodged? The Tunnel of Goats first appeared in the pilot episode of the sitcom Father Ted. So we decided we wanted a genuine tunnel of goats at the Weird Weekend, so we have a tunnel of goats in a little sub-part of the Weird Weekend that we like to call Funland, which is a strange and small theme park for the kiddies, where we have a tunnel of goats, a haunted teddy bear's nest, a spider baby. It's half baby and half spider, but it wouldn't bite you or anything like that. And new for this year, we have a three-legged sack.
A three-legged sack?
A three-legged sack.
Right, okay. Any reason for the three legs? No. Okay.
None whatsoever.
I can see there's a lot of television influence going on here.
Yes, well, I owe my career to Doctor Who. I grew up in the early 70s watching the great John Pertwee as the Doctor, and he was incarcerated on Earth by the Time Lords, so everything he met, all the monsters were on Earth, and they were more compelling and frightening because they were on your doorstep. So when you had things like the Sea Devils, giant maggots, Silurians, the Autons, they were all in contemporary Britain, and it was all the more frightening, and that's what inspired me to get into weird animals. And I became a zookeeper. I ran the reptile house at Twycross Zoo in the West Midlands, famous for the Twycross Zoo chimps, the PG Tips chimps, if you remember those.
Yes, I remember those.
Yes, I worked with those, but I mainly ran the reptile house, and then I ended up working with John at the Centre for 14 Zoology, and I, like I say, since then I've been all over the world on the trail of strange creatures.
Right, okay. So, a Doctor Who fan. I'm not even going to go any further than that because, as most people who listen to the show know, I'm a fan too. I go right back to the original series when it was in black and white and you used to hide behind the settee with the Daleks coming at you. But that's another story altogether, and there's another show altogether. So, how can people come along to the weekend? John?
Well, the Weird Weekend, it starts off tomorrow on Friday evening at 6 o'clock at the small school in Heartland, and like a total idiot, I can't tell you what street it's in Heartland, but if you're driving into Heartland, there's only the one street and it's on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I know. I do know it, yes.
Yeah, and I can't remember the name of the street.
I don't know, there's a street that goes into Heartland, and it's down on, as you say, on the right-hand side.
Well, as I found out about 40 minutes ago that you and I share the same alma mater, we were at school together, you will understand why my sense of geography is not terribly good.
Yes. John admitted that he didn't remember me from school when I said that he was not in the same year. He was a couple of years below me, but he was in the class of somebody that I did know, and he still couldn't remember me. But there you go. That's age for you.
Now I feel bad about this. You know, I'm afraid too much water and quite a lot of brandy has flowed under quite a few bridges in those last 45 years.
But anyway, so it's all weekend.
It's all weekend. Now I've got a special offer for you guys who are out listening to The Voice. Normally it costs 25 quid for the whole weekend. That's 3 days and kids are free. But if you live in the villages of Woolsbury or Clovelly or Heartland, you just get in for £5. Or if you turn up brandishing one of the Voice stickers that I see you've got stuck on everything, then you can get in for £5 for the whole weekend, and your kids are getting free, and Jessica will personally take you through the Tunnel of Goats.
Just let me explain that. Jess is not a fan of the Tunnel of Goats.
Jessica, come here.
She didn't want to introduce...
This is Jessica, boys and girls.
Hi, Jess.
I'm not saying anything.
Well, you're actually saying it on here now. Jess is John's niece, who is trying to organise him, I understand, Jess. Is that right?
Yeah, he's so unorganised.
Right, so you're helping him with his filing.
Yeah.
You're helping him with his office.
Yeah.
And you're not getting anywhere at all.
No.
Mainly because the office is an old shed and it's got a recording studio in it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you've got the hardest job in this world.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Everything else that's going on, I think she deserves a rise.
Oh, I think she deserves a rise. She'll get one up to the minimum wage as it goes up again when she's 18 in about... Well, in fact, I think I'm probably going to sack her when she's 18 because it means I'll have to pay her, I think, an extra 75p an hour.
It's the first time I've heard trade negotiations for pay rises going on in the Voice studio. Right, we'll play Hosier and then we'll come back to these three crazy people a bit later on. Right, we're back on air, and as I said, we are here with John, Richard, and Jess, who has been given a bit of stick to the other two gentlemen during the break about embarrassing her on air, and I don't blame her either. We're talking about cryptozoology, and we've had a call about endangered species and breeds, actually. We've got cattle and sheep and horses that are on the endangered list, and I think possibly we should be protecting them, and the gentlemen here agree with me, so I think that's a good point. We're talking about the Weird Weekend and what goes on with it and everything else. Let's just move on. What other subjects are being discussed? Because as I mentioned earlier on, I mentioned UFOs, and John almost kind of gave me one of those looks that said, be quiet, but I'll ask the question anyway.
No, I didn't.
No, I know.
No, the Weird Weekend covers all sorts of things that people who are interested in cryptozoology are also interested in. And the three main subjects we cover, aren't they, Richard?
Monsters, ghosts, and UFOs.
And those are the three subjects which each year Richard asks very stupid and surreal questions about in the Weird Weekend quiz. But from memory, we've got a talk about alien abductions from a man with a giant snake. Now, if you don't believe this is true, it is true, isn't it, Richard? It is.
Would that be Rob with the seal serpent?
No.
No, okay.
It would be Nick Wadham who's talking about... He's talking about alien abductions. We have Rob Corns talking about sea serpents. We have Richard talking about dragons. We have Judge Smith, who is not a member of a famous comic book, but he is actually the original drummer from a band called Van de Graaff Generator, who us oldies will remember, and he is talking about Ouija boards and Victorian seances. Who else we got, Rich? I can't even remember who else
we've got. Lars Thomas from the University of Copenhagen on the thylacine or Tasmanian wolf that I mentioned earlier on.
We've got my stepdaughter, who's a qualified vet, who's talking about the Fortean aspects of feral cats. I'm sorry, Peter's trying to get a word in there.
Yeah, well, you guys can't.
Ronan Coghlan, who is a feckless rogue. And what's he talking about this time?
He's talking about the how do you pronounce Dovahu? I can never pronounce it. Dovahu, I think.
The Doragi.
I think it depends which part of Ireland you're from.
It's the master otter. It's an otter that's 6 to 10 feet long, much larger than the European otter should grow to, and it's been seen in certain lakes in Ireland.
Now, if there are any Irish speakers who are actually listening, it's spelt Dobhar, second word CHU. And if you can actually tell us how that's pronounced and how you got that pronunciation from that spelling, I would be very grateful.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question now, because there's one name on this list with something against it. I really want to know what's been talked about this weekend. There's somebody called Silas Hawkins, who it says, after everybody else, it's got what they do or what they're talking about, but after his name or her name, it's got a bedtime story.
Dum, dum, dum.
Silas Hawkins is the son of the gentleman who did the original voices for the Daleks and the Cybermen.
Ah!
Yes.
Right.
Yes, back in the 1960s with William Hartnell, and then with Patrick Troughton. Now, he is also an actor and a voice artist, and every year he comes and gives a presentation. Sometimes he does it in character, and other times he reads some of my horror stories, because as well as a cryptozoologist, I'm an author, and I write both fiction and non-fiction, but I write horror stories, generally ones based on British folklore or Japanese folklore, and he reads one...
That's a bit of a mixture, isn't it? It's either English folklore or Japanese folklore, you know, I mean, not even European. But anyway, and the other one I've got here is...
Europe.
The other one I've got here is a Mad Hatter's Tea Party.
Oh, that's just an excuse for kids to eat cakes. We buy 3 huge cakes, and we have teams of kids, 2 teams of kids, and there's a competition. And whichever team of kids can eat the huge cake first, eat it all, the prize is another huge cake.
Because the thing is, we're really worried. We agree with the government that we're worried about childhood obesity as well. So we think that children should be encouraged to eat more cake.
Okay, yeah, okay. That's kind of one of those left-wing things, I think. You've also got a bug fest, the Tunnel of Goats, which we talked about, a haunted teddy bear's nest, the spider baby, and the three-legged sack. For the children, you've got make your own weird creature out of clay, colouring, drawing, photograph competition, film showing, fill a matchbox with 100 things challenge.
I haven't a clue. You'll have to ask my on-off secretary, Andrea. I have no idea.
Okay, the world famous cake eating competition, which we've contest, nature walk, and animal handling with the Bugfest. Obviously, you've got stalls and all sorts of things going on. The speakers. So as has already been said, there is a special offer going on. Go down to the Heartland Small School with a voice sticker, and you can get in the whole weekend for a £5. Or if you live in the villages of Wolseley, Clovelly, or Heartland, you can also get in all weekend for a £5.
Or if you went to school with me and Peter, you can also get in for a £5.
Yeah, but you would need a Zimmer frame as well.
Or if you live in John O'Groats, because you've really made the effort. Then.
Right, I'm going to.
Or if you've come all the way from, I don't know, Paraguay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paraguay. Anybody from Paraguay, you can get in for £1.
Okay. I'm going to play another track off my album Revisited before these two take over the whole studio and the show. We're just going to finish off with John, Richard and Jess, and they're just going to tell us a little bit about the website and anything else really about the Weird Weekend. It's at Heartland Small School this weekend. It's all different speakers. It starts on Friday night, runs through Saturday and Sunday. There are all sorts of interesting subjects. You can take the kids along. There's plenty for them to do while you sit and listen to the talks. And having spoken to everybody tonight, I think some of it is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, if I'm not mistaken.
Tongue-in-cheek? Us?
What?
I'm shocked.
A tunnel of goats?
We do indeed have a tunnel of goats.
And it's a very serious scientific exposition about what happens when you have goats in a tunnel.
Anyway, let's do the website.
Peter, we're old school friends. You won't let us carry on talking nonsense all evening.
You can't remember.
Okay, you can check out our website for the Weird Weekend. It's www.weirdweekend.org. There's also Weird Weekend 2015 page on Facebook. And Jessica, is there anything else we ought to say?
Apart from good night, wireless listeners.
Good night, wireless listeners. I tell you what, I've enjoyed the last hour. Thank you very much for coming in. It's been really interesting, and it's been really nice to catch up with an old school friend who didn't know he was an old school friend.